Welcome to Your Number Man. This is the podcast where we explore financial strategies, business insights, and real life stories to help you grow your business with clarity and confidence. I'm your host. My name is Johan, and my purpose is to help business owners build smarter, stronger, and profitable businesses and living a bigger life through them. Now, today I'm joined by the entrepreneur. I don't know if there's a word like that. His name is Tim Grigg. And Tim is the owner of Travel Wild Adventures. Originally, Tim started out back in the 90s. Well, Tim's going to tell us all about it. He studied industrial design, worked at Stratco, but then went on a mountaineering course in New Zealand, and that completely changed his direction. That sparked his passion towards travel, and that led him into the tourism industry. And in 1998, Tim and his wife Bianca launched the first travel business. And since then, they've built great brands from their operations in Clare, where their headquarters is. They've got Kimberley Adventure Tours, Clare Valley Wine Tours, and Clare Valley Walking Tours. In this conversation, we'll dive into Tim's entrepreneurial journey, how he built his business, the challenges of running tours in remote Australia, the creative solutions that kept him moving forward, and the importance of financial clarity when building a sustainable company. We're going to jump right in. Tim, very welcome to Your Number Man.
Hi, Johan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. Now, I know I've rattled it all down quickly. I think you've got a very long story to tell, a very interesting story to tell. But I guess I got it pretty much on the dot there.
Yeah, that was a great summary. Yeah.
A great summary. And you grew up in Mildura originally.
Yes.
And then you went to boarding school in Melbourne.
Yes.
And did that shape your entrepreneurial spirit?
I tend to think that if you've got an entrepreneurial spirit, you've probably got an entrepreneurial spirit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I do remember when I was at school always thinking about what the future would hold, and I suppose I always wanted to work for myself. I was always quite creative. Industrial design field of study is almost a fairly creative one, and I was constantly thinking about new products and inventing things and wondering about how it would be possible perhaps to turn whatever idea I had in my head into a business. So I was always thinking about that even as a kid. Yeah. So that's just there, I think. I don't think... I think that would have been there whatever school I went to or wherever I grew up, I guess. I think so.
Great, Tim. So your studies then in this industrial design later on, how did that contribute to creativity? It's a very creative... I think you mentioned at some stage, it's a bit like an architect of machines or something.
Yeah, pretty much. It's an interesting discipline. It's pretty much all products which we use every day have had some sort of design element to them. And there's obviously the function of how things work, but there's also how things look, how they're made, manufacturing processes and all that sort of stuff. Cars are a very good example. You don't need all the great styling that cars get, but if all you really need is a square box and off you go if you're just looking for transport. But obviously that's not how it is. So there's a big emphasis on how things look, and it touches everyday products. So that's what industrial design is. Again, I think what came first, the chicken or the egg? I think the creativity was there, and then I chose that path as a potential career because I was creative. At school, I did some of the science subjects, but I also did a bit of art, and I did some other sort of creative study between finishing school and starting uni, and that was really quite interesting. So I've always been quite creative, and these days I get involved in building the websites that the various brands that we have use, and I really enjoy that process.
Yeah, that takes a lot of creativity.
Yeah.
And I can just imagine running a tour group. It's a bit like you're having a restaurant as well. You want to have something special, some competitive edge in your touring group. So you've got to be doing something different that your competitors do. Perhaps a fancy kind of lookout platform on the top of a bus or something.
Yeah, exactly. You're always looking for opportunities to make the experience that you're offering special, because that's the value that you're adding, I guess. Otherwise, you peel it right back, and you're a bus driver or you're an Uber driver where all you're doing is providing transport. That's not very interesting, and I suppose you You want happy customers, of course, running any sort of business. You want to deliver the product that you promise. And so, yeah, there's a big emphasis on that, having a point of difference, having access to places that perhaps your competitors don't, and being very careful to provide the correct information and have good gear that's clean and not broken, or a good vehicle and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of value adding that goes on as a tour operator, and the more value adding you can offer, the more point of difference you've got, and you want to be able to charge a decent amount of money for the experience so that you can make a living, and that comes back to the value adding. You don't want to have a business where all you're doing is competing on price, because there's always going to be some fella who's willing to do it for less. So,
become a price maker, not a price taker.
Exactly.
Having something special.
Yeah, exactly.
And people come back, and because price, at the end of the day, economists see price as money, as numbers, but we as consumers see price as value. So in business, it's just a exchange of value. They give you money and you give them good value.
Yeah, and you certainly don't have to be the cheapest, but you want to be able to still offer great value for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah,
and make sure it's safe, and that is very important. And then so let's take it back a step first of all. So after Stratco, so where you're working as an industrial designer, and you've designed sheds.
Pretty much,
I believe. Okay. You get fancy sheds these days, don't you?
Yeah. I was mostly in the fencing project, but anyway.
Yeah, you get fencing as well. You get fancy everything these days. Yeah. But then you like mountaineering. You've always liked climbing up mountains and stuff. But then I've
always been outdoorsy and adventurous.
And you took a course in New Zealand. Yeah. You made that sparked your passion, didn't it?
Look, I wasn't particularly happy doing the job that I was doing. It wasn't really floating my boat, and your job is where you spend most of your time. So I just thought, there's probably something else that I can do. And there's a saying, you find a job you like, you never work a day in your life. I'm not sure if I was aware of that quote back then, but it felt fairly intuitive to go and find something that I liked. And I looking back, I suppose for a while there I'd thought about tourism, because I love that outdoors, travel, adventure sort of stuff. I was aware you could work in it. And this little mountaineering course that I did, we had guides who took us up to the mountains. We're up there for 10 days, and I looked at these guys and I thought, look at these guys. They're up here. This is their job. They're getting paid. They're making a living, and yet they're up here in this environment doing this fantastic thing. So I thought I think that's the sort of thing I would like to do. And then I wasn't about to become some sort of mountain guide. I was on a beginner's course. I thought, what could I do back in Australia? And I'd travelled lots through outback South Australia and up to the NT, and really loved that sort of style of thing. And I was aware that there were some tour operators who did backpacker tours. So when I came back to Adelaide, where I was living at the time, and went into a backpacker hostel and picked up a brochure from a fella who did these 10-day backpacker trips from Adelaide to Alice Springs, and rang him up and said, how do I get a job? And he said, come out and have a chat. We had a chat, and a couple of weeks later he rang and said, I'm going next week. Do you want to come?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, sure. Yeah.
That's right. And that's where you met your wife as well.
Yeah, she was a passenger on one of the tours, yeah.
Yeah, so she wasn't working there, and then...
No, she jumped on as a backpacker, yeah.
She went, and then she stayed, because she's originally from Holland.
Yes.
And then she was supposed to go back, but you fell in love.
Yeah, look, we had an really instant connection. Yeah. It was wonderful, and that was 30 years ago now, so we've been going along great. And we've been running the business together. But yeah, so she had a visa. Obviously, her visa was up. She had to go back. And she's, I'm going back to Holland. Do you want to come? I'm like, sure. That sounds like fun. Let's do that. Yeah. I'd never really been anywhere apart from New Zealand. And so that was cool. We lived there for a year.
A bit flatter than the Flinders, eh?
Yeah. And culturally completely different in Europe, and weather and all sorts of things. So that was really interesting to go and live there, and to meet her family and her friends, and to... Yeah, and live that life.
The travel back really just kept on growing with you.
The whole time I was over there, I was thinking about, because I'd only worked for this fella for 6 months, really, before we took off. And in that 6 months, I knew that was what I
Yeah.
That sort of job is what I needed to be doing. I was really suited to it. I was quite good at it. I could do it. I got really good feedback without sounding like a tosser, but I could certainly do it, and I really enjoyed doing it. And because I'd always thought, look, at one day I'd like to have my own business, it seemed like it was a pretty easy thing to do. You look in the mirror, the back of the car, you've got 10 people, they've all paid $1,000 or something. That's $10,000. Holy crap.
Yeah.
How hard can it be? And I was very keen to start my own thing. So we travelled for a couple of years, and then eventually in 98 we started our own thing. And it turns out it's a bit harder than I thought it was going to be.
Good. And obviously one of the hardest part was the numbers.
Yeah, because sometimes you look in the mirror and there's only two people sitting there. Yeah.
So you had to work out. And I think I don't know if you told me the story once when we were working together here at the hub, but it's very hard because you think, okay, we're going to get a lot of money for each person, and you took a group to Kangaroo Island.
Yeah.
And came back and you said, all right, cool, we've made $20 profit.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know what it exactly was. But yeah, we worked really hard the whole season, and everything was more expensive than we imagined. I'm sure most people who start a business have that experience. The first trip we did was full, which was great. The second trip, the gearbox blew up on our vehicle.
Yeah.
And then we had to go and hire a vehicle for a few weeks. And then we had to get the thing towed back to Adelaide, so that was a tow truck on the ferry, and that was
on the ferry, and then
and that was hundreds and thousands or whatever. And then the other guy, and then then we didn't get that vehicle back, and 6 weeks later, and the whole time we'd had to hire this other thing, and then first trip was full. That's great. Your next trip's only half full, and
you want to get that.
There's all these, and you have to keep the show rolling, and there's just so many expenses that you just don't.
And the margins are very tough. Look at the airline industry.
Yeah.
And obviously they are trying to really work on their competitive advantage.
Yes.
They keep giving better movies or better food or whatever. But at the end of the day is people want to get from here to Melbourne for under $100 for that matter.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't really worry. So that is very important for you as well to get bumps on seats.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It comes back a little bit to what we were talking about before, was the value adding. So it's took me a long time to work it out, but we were really busy for a long time. You've probably heard the expression, the busy idiot. I was a busy idiot for a long time, and I'm still probably a bit of an idiot because it took me a long time to work.
You're just busy now.
It took me a long time to work it out.
Yeah.
We were defining our success by how many trips we were running and how many people we were getting on the bus. And it's pretty hard you want to run a trip every day, run 7 trips a week and have a 20-seater bus or something. It's a lot of people you've got to put through. And if you've got to have a really competitive price then, because you're really trying to pump the people through. You want more people, so you've got to start working with travel agents, and they all want commission. You're reducing again the amount of money that you're getting per person, but you're keeping pumping these people through. But because you're going every day, you've got no time to really organise them properly. There's a lot of winging it that goes on. There's midnight fixes of buses or something to get out the next day. There's tour guides that get sick or that quit. So then you've got to go. You've got the trip going out tomorrow, so you've got to go find some guide, and maybe you've got to put someone on who's not as good as you'd like, but you've got 20 people turning up in the morning.
And if you don't find somebody, you yourself got to go.
Yeah, yourself got to go. So over the years, we've come back and we run less trips now. So instead of running 7 trips a week, I say, let's do it as a comparison. These days I run 3, but I charge twice as much, and I'm still working hard. I still work 7 days, if that's the analogy. But in between, I'm working on organising and planning and making the tours better and doing the marketing and adding the value. And
a lot of planning and a lot of, you've got to work out your consistencies, what happens.
Yeah.
You could look at your trends, what will happen if what's the likelihood of a truck breaking down? Have you got cash to fix it?
Yeah, that's right. And if you've got less trips, there's less maintenance. There's more time in between. If you're running a trip every 2 days and the bus does have a problem, okay, you've got the day to fix it. You don't have to try and do it in the middle of the night, sort of thing. And it ends up you end up providing a better experience. You're getting better feedback. You're getting better word of mouth. You're getting better repeat business, or even though your tour's twice as much.
But that's the kind of stuff that we just and nobody can tell you this kind of stuff. You've got to experience it yourself.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you've got to like really struggle for perhaps a few years, and okay, because every business is different.
Yeah.
Every culture in the business is different. Even one airline to another airline is probably the same kind of concept, but it's different. It's different cultures, different market, demographics.
Yeah.
The way that, so experience, we just learn stuff. As long as we learn stuff.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
that's
good.
good.
And for anyone who's thinking of starting a business, I just work hard. I really enjoy the work that I do, but I always work.
Yes.
And I don't worry about today's tour. If it's only got 2 people on it, it's probably going to lose money. You just go out and still do
tomorrow you're going to have
a great job.
Fully booked one.
Yeah. Look, I had we've started doing these walking tours in Clare, which is quite a new sort of product. So we've only been doing about 3 years. But so a couple of years ago, we just did a few trips and we put one out there and we only got 2 people on it. Yeah. And it was like a 3-day trip sort of thing. So we had to go and pick them up in Adelaide. So there's a lot of work around. And so you're tempted to think, look, we're not going to make any money on this 2-day trip. Let's cancel it, give them a refund or something like that, yeah, which is a pain for them because they've probably booked flights and all sorts of stuff. So we've said, yeah, let's run it. We'll just run it and won't make any money for the 3 days or whatever. That's fine. Did a really good job. And whilst we had them, we walk and talk. So there's a lot of time to talk. We're talking about our other product we've got up in the Kimberley, and they really liked the idea of that. They ended up getting 5 of their friends, 5 other couples, to book 6 of our Kimberley tours in one sort of hit. They all went out as a group. So
5 couples.
So there were 6 of them in total. That was about an $80,000 booking, all up. Because it's a big expensive operation.
So there's a good return on investment on taking the punt.
So had I just looked at that particular trip and said, nah, it's too hard, we won't do it. We did it. We did a good job, and we turned that into something much bigger. It doesn't always happen like that, and it's really hard to track. But I think if you just continue to work and do a great job, then it helps if you like what you're doing.
It helps. That's exactly, we as business owners, we just got to know we sometimes just got to roll with the punches.
Yeah.
It would have cost you a lot of money anyway if you had to cancel a trip.
Yeah, that's right.
Because you probably say, okay, I'll refund you the air fees or whatever for that matter. Perhaps.
Yeah, that's right. And or sometimes you've got the situation where, okay, we're not going to make any money.
Yes.
We can not make any money, and we can take some people out and who might give us a review or tell their friends, or we can not make any money and have some pissed off people who are going to talk about us in the opposite way.
And that is, that's the thing about business. That can have a massive, that can cripple your business.
Yeah, that's right.
The word of mouth.
Yeah.
And like you said, you had very good 2 customers, and they were very happy. And from the 5 groups, or was it 6 groups that they've referred back to you, those people referred more people back.
Exactly.
Probably.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know. You don't always know. But
that's right.
No, that's a great lesson. Thanks for that. That's a great story. Now let's talk a little bit about your marketing as well. I want to talk more about your challenges, but let's talk about your marketing. We had a bit of a chat before we started this recording this morning, and you said, you just learn stuff. You just had to learn how to fix cars, and you had to learn how to market. But one of the things that you became very good at was Google and SEOs and how the algorithms work. That helps a lot with your bookings, isn't that correct?
That's right, yeah. And that was out of necessity. I remember, so in 98, the internet was around and websites were a thing, but certainly they were quite a new, innovative thing. Not everyone had one. We figured we needed one. I went to the bookshop, which is crazy, and bought a book, Building Websites for Dummies or something.
Yeah, I remember those books,
Yeah, and that's how I started building the website. And because I've got that creative sort of personality, I really quite enjoyed that, made this website. And then Google came along and said, you got to rank. How do you do that? So I don't think I got a book that time. I probably typed it into Google, how to rank or whatever. And I learned as much as I could, and I implemented the things, and then nothing happened for a long time. And then one day the phone rang. And it was like, oh, hello. And then it was someone who wanted to book a Kimberley tour or something, and then it was then the phone in, and the email started coming in, and all of it. I thought, what the hell has happened?
Yeah.
And I had a look online, and we were like number 1 or 2 for whatever keyword we'd been chasing, and it just started happening. Yeah. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
But you've got to keep track of it, because then everything works fine until one day it just stops. They change the algorithm.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So it's certainly it's an evolving thing, and I suppose Google's always, their mission is to deliver up the most relevant content to the user. These days, most of the responses that they give you back are AI generated. Instead of if you ask a question, instead of providing you a website that might give you the answer, they give you the answer through some AI sort of thing. That's all changing again. Yeah.
Talk about AI. So having a touring business, that's pretty cool, because there's no way that robot's going to take people on tours. So you're making yourself un-AIable, isn't it? With this
I wonder. I was thinking about this the other day.
There's probably virtual tours and that kind of things that's probably going to come in eventually. Well, it's already there.
Yeah.
Probably.
So if I look at our Kimberley business, whilst we do a fantastic job and get better reviews than anyone and all that sort of stuff, so you can be tempted to think that you're just awesome. That's why people are coming. But really the reason people are coming is because it's really hard for them to do their own thing in the Kimberley. It's so far away. And even if you've got a 4-wheel drive and you want to go and do the Gibb River Road, and if you live in Sydney, it takes you a week just to get there.
Yeah.
And then you've got to do the Gibb, and then you've got a week. So it's almost impossible to do your own thing. So that's why, apart from us being awesome, that's why we're so busy up there, because we solve a problem for people. Yeah.
I like that.
Our wine tours in Clare, similar thing, great feedback. But the problem we're solving is that people don't want to go around wine tasting and have to drive. So we are, at the end of the day, there's some pretty key problems that we solve, which is the reason that we exist. And on top of those, you got that initial problem, and then we make the experience heaps better, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But there is that core problem that we're solving. So I don't know whether some tours what they offer is information to people about a region, especially if you're coming from overseas or something and you want to. There's city tours and stuff that people go and do because they want to learn about the history or see the great place. So that's something that AI could probably do.
But you still want to sit on a bus or a thing and just there's a statue of blah blah blah, and there's a monument.
Yeah. So if your goal is to get the information, then I suppose AI can do that, and probably even Google can do that now. I don't know. I'm not really. I'm just thinking out loud, Johan.
No, that's great.
I don't know. I don't want to be so complacent that's never going to impact us. But travel trends change too. Yeah. There might be something that happens that means that people don't want to go and do 10-day expeditions anymore. That
rather sit at home and watch TikTok videos.
Yeah, something. Yeah, mate.
Yeah.
Like that. Like for example, that trip that I originally did, where I met my wife, Adelaide to Alice Springs, 10 days, full of backpackers. The guy that ran that, he was running 3 trips a week or something. He was busy as anything. Yeah. And the model back then for travel for backpackers was they'd fly into Sydney, and then they'd get themselves a bus pass, because it was horrendously expensive to do domestic flights. No one flew around the country. Sydney to Melbourne back then was probably $500 or something on those dollars. So no one flew anywhere. So they'd land into Sydney, they'd get a bus pass, they'd go to Melbourne, they'd go to Adelaide, they'd go to Alice Springs, they'd go to Darwin, and they do all tours and stuff along the way. So the only reason they came to Adelaide was on their bus pass. And then the only reason that they joined this tour to Alice Springs was when they got to Adelaide, they worked out, there's all this other stuff up between. They're going to the Rock anyway, let's go and see that. See, now that tour's not there, it doesn't exist anymore. And most of the hostels in Adelaide have disappeared, because now the backpackers arrive into Sydney, they stay in Sydney, they get these cheap Jetstar flights or whatever. So instead of getting on a bus and going to the Rock, they'll jump on a flight, they'll fly over there for the weekend, and then they'll go back to Sydney sort of thing. See what I mean? So there's something else, there's some other trigger that's caused the demise of that particular travel route. And it wasn't because there was anything wrong with that travel route, it was because the world changed.
the world changed, but your business would change as well to make sure that
You have to evolve, of course, yeah.
Evolve. And in the meantime, you've started the walking trails in Clare and the wine tours.
Yeah.
Because I guess in the past, I live in the Barossa, and just crazy over weekends of all the tourists coming there. Everybody just want to drink wine. And
that's right.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know if it was like that in your old days. I've been
look, for our business, I don't want to ramble too much, but COVID was for most people, it was disastrous. For travel business,
it was
particularly disastrous.
Kicked you in the guts.
But honestly, it was a blessing in disguise, because we made some massive changes. We were forced to make those changes. And now the business is much better. We honestly only started the wine tours because we had all this Western Australia focused stuff. We couldn't get into the place. The whole place was shut down, and we had a vehicle sitting around in Clare. And I'm like, I've got to do something. So we started the little wine tour business in Clare. So
just after COVID or
during it, yeah. Because my sort of thing had always been these big outback expeditions. I was always interested in doing stuff in Clare, but I was also always so busy with this stuff away that I never really...
Yeah.
But we had to... Pre-COVID, we had all these... It was this budget backpacker model, bums on seats, busted-ass trucks, belting up and down the Kimberley, swags and trailers and gear and stuff, and it's just this big machine that was rolling on. And COVID came, we all stopped, and I just said, I'm not doing that again. That's just horrible. I was so sick of it. And then, so... I said to Bianca, I said, let's start again, but this time, instead of starting with no knowledge and with no money, which we did last time, 25 years ago, we'll start with 25 years of knowledge, and we still had some equity in the house or whatever. There's a bit of, as you get older, there's a bit of money there. We said, let's create some products that let's get really innovative and creative and create some new stuff. And that's what we did. And the new stuff we've got is there's less of it, but there's time in between to plan stuff properly. We charge more, so there's money there to do extra stuff. So we're running less tours, but we're more profitable.
Less tours, but you're more profitable.
And personal level, I'm really enjoying working again. Whereas the 5 years leading up to COVID, it was just the thing had evolved into a machine that was just I wasn't enjoying it at all. They say you've got to work on your business, not in your business.
Exactly.
I was just in the business constantly, and COVID forced our hand and said, okay, let's have an evaluation of what's going on. It's good, I think, and if you're a normal business, maybe you do that from time to time anyway, but that's certainly a good every year or so. I think it's good to have a really deep hard think about what you're doing and where
that's a good takeaway as well.
Yeah.
If you can tell people, a lot of business owners probably do it, but sometimes you don't have to wait for a COVID to come around or a GFC or whatever.
Yeah.
You've got to go out and say, okay, review.
Yeah.
And perhaps just step back and say, what have you done over the last 6 months or a year, and how can you change it?
And why are we doing it this way?
Yeah.
We do it that way because that's the way we've always done it. Yeah, or maybe there's a different way to do it.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. But, okay, before COVID, and I did mention the global financial crisis, but you also, during that time, you were on a pretty good wicket, and then a global financial crisis happened, and you had some other shareholders in the business at some stage.
Yeah, so we started, and it was basically myself and my wife. Then very quickly, that first year I did all the tour guiding on Kangaroo Island. Bianca was running around Adelaide with the mobile phone, dealing with hostels, getting all our passengers. And then we also started a family, and so we had kids come along, so that got pretty hard for both of us. So Bianca's always worked in the business, but she was spending a lot of time with kids, and so I couldn't continue to just disappear for months at a time and go on tours and stuff. You had to be there, obviously. So we said, okay, the only option is to grow the business and to employ people to go out and do the tours, and I can take on more of a management role and organising stuff, so I can stay home and be home at night and all that sort of stuff. So we did that, and in the end we had a couple of employees who wanted to come into the business. So after 3 or 4 years, we sold 2/3 of the business to these 2 employees, and they came in, and there was 3 of us, 3 shareholders, and we each had some sort of management role. I was running the show. There was a fella who was doing operations, and there was a girl who was doing the sort of admin side of things. And but that coincided with the GFC.
Yes.
I don't know whether it might not have worked anyway. I don't. That whole partnership thing is obviously, lots of people say it's really difficult. It was, yeah, we found it really difficult. We found it difficult to continue to grow the business. I think the plan was to try and keep growing the business so that we could all justify our salaries. That got really hard, and we made the decision that, look, we can't all be in the office anymore. Some of us have got to go out on the road and back to tour guiding. I didn't want to do that because I had these young kids. They didn't want to do it because whatever.
They're now part of the business.
Part of the business.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we stumbled on and it just got worse. And in the end, they ended up buying me out and taking it over full time. And they continued on for a year or so. But yeah, in the end, it got too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where you diversified in and just focusing on the Kimberley stuff?
Yeah, for me, that's when I really started. I started pretty much an online travel agent, really. I was starting to promote and sell other...
With your knowledge of...
other tourism businesses.
All the...
Yeah.
And then, and through that, you probably realize you can sell this stuff, but perhaps a lot of operators, there's perhaps a lot of operators that you can do a better job than them. And that's how you probably got back into buying trucks and...
That's another thing. So I was quite...
Yeah.
I think I was 7 years running the original thing and fully burnt out, just needed to stop. And so, yeah, through running the business, we'd created these relationships with other tour operators in other parts of the country who did similar things to us.
Yeah.
So one of the problems as a little tour operator on, say, Kangaroo Island is you're not really getting repeat business because your customer they only want to go to Kangaroo Island once, sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But they might want to do a similar thing up at Uluru and in Kakadu and the Kimberley and all this sort of stuff. So we formed this little relationship with these other tour operators who did a similar style of travel to us, but in other regions.
I get it. Yeah.
So the idea was that we could then promote each other. Because if you do our trip on KI and you really like the style of thing that you do, then you're going to like a similar operator up at Uluru sort of thing. And we were all promoting each other, but of course some people promoted each other more than the other one. So I might have been putting lots of people onto the Uluru trip, but that fella wasn't putting anything onto me. So this is not really fair. So then we came up with a commission model. And we said, okay, we'll pay each other commission. So then the people who work harder get paid for it, and the people who don't do anything don't earn anything. So that's essentially what a travel agent is. They get a commission from... And then when I finished up with the tour business, I kept those relationships in place and built some websites to promote their stuff and kept collecting that commission. And that's when I did all the SEO. And then that went really well for a couple of years. But I was acutely aware that 100% of my business was due to Google rankings, which I was really good at getting, so it was going well. But diversity is a good strategy, isn't it? I didn't have any of that. It was 100% was Google. So I knew that if Google ever changed their algorithm and knocked me off, then I'd have no business. So one of the operators that I had a relationship with is mob in the Kimberley. We were their best agent, and it's pretty grueling. Stuff happens, goes right. Anyway, they rang me up one day and said, we've had enough of this. We're not going to operate next year. We're going to go back to our other jobs, and it's just too hard because it's a pain in the ass, vehicles breaking and all this stuff. And I thought, that sucks because I'm putting a lot of people onto their products, so I'll lose all that commission. And so I said to them, maybe I could take it on. So we agreed, I bought the business from them because I knew that if Google ever changed their algorithm, at least I've got that other little Kimberley business, which was only small. It was only 2 vehicles. Yeah. I thought, at least I've got that. I can run that on the side sort of thing. But then lo and behold, about 3 months after I got into that Kimberley business, the algorithms changed. I lost all my rankings and the tap got turned off. And so I wasn't earning any money at all from selling. And then I'm like, oh, that sucks. And so then I thought, I'm a tour operator again. So I started focusing into the Kimberley and built that business and created some other brands and all that sort of stuff. But interestingly, the selling, which I did for 2 or 3 years, was really lucrative. I earned some really good money, but it was so damn boring and uninteresting and uninspiring, and there was no joy to it at all, really. because nothing like you get from actually organising trips and running trips with people and being
it's
out
like
there.
A project and see the smiles in the people's faces when they get all those wow moments.
Yeah, and that's just me. But so I wasn't too disappointed because when you're actually part of creating this experience, it's so much more rewarding. And money's great. Obviously, we all need it. But for you to have a really fulfilling and enjoyable life, it's being involved in helping other people have a great time is nice. Yeah,
it is nice. Yeah,
and that wasn't happening when I was just selling.
Yeah, I get it, because you're selling. Okay, you make money, but at the end of the day, as we know, money is not the only gauge to success.
No,
as well. And that's what we probably need to. What you realize later on in business is, okay, you've made money, but are you happy? Are you really driving and that's my motto is living a bigger life in your business. And I'm pretty sure you and Bianca has actually reached that stage now where you say, look what
our job is so rewarding. Like we constantly just getting this great feedback from people that they've had a great time, and that it's wonderful. Yeah,
it is.
We'll sit there and the phone will beep and we've got a review or something, and we'll get so excited.
Yeah,
we'll jump on the phone, have a look at what's such and such written, and you know, it's
and that means a lot, because that's a lot of people still look at reviews.
Yeah, 100%.
TripAdvisor is still big.
I'm not sure.
Google reviews.
We put most of our effort into Google reviews now. Yeah.
Okay. All right, great, Tim. Let's have a quick chat about your team now and your going forward.
Yes.
So,
no worries.
So I think what happened, from what I can gather, is over the years you've scaled down a bit. You focus on you really having a good culture. You're using contractors in terms of tour guides now, but but you don't have a very big permanent team.
No, not at all. There's only 3 of us that are really permanent.
Yes.
So myself and my wife Bianca.
Yep.
And then we've got another girl, Nicole, who works from home over in Perth, and she just helps with a lot of operational sort of stuff and does a lot of the emails and phone inquiries and helps to organise stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're getting people, you've got a list of tour guides that's willing to help go out.
Yeah. So we've got a couple who do the Kimberley for us. We had them they did it this year, and that was just fantastic. So they're coming back next year. And then in Clare, I've got one sort of full-time fella, or not full-time, but more permanent sort of fella who does most of the wine tours and helps with a lot of driving around. Myself and Bianca do most of the walking tour guiding. And there's a couple of others in Clare we can call on if we get really busy. We've got some random trip next week of a whole bunch of Japanese school students going up to Uluru. So I've got there's a girl we do that once a year. So there's a girl I employ to do that. She loves doing it. Yeah. So she only does one job a year for us. Yeah. So yeah.
But it's your vehicles.
It's on my vehicles. Yeah. Yes. There's a core team, and then there's all the tour guides that are quite flexible. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the nature of that job.
Yeah. No, great. And let's just move quickly back into the numbers. So obviously Bianca is an accountant, and her background is she's very much pivotal in making sure all the checks and balances are in place.
Yes.
But how important did you see over all the years is financial clarity in your business?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. It's because she's always had that skill. She's always done it. So I'm pretty ignorant, to be honest. I take an interest in what's going on, but really she does it all, which is unreal. So it allows us to specialise and it allows me to focus on running the business and the marketing, the operations, and all the other stuff that I do. We work really well together. She's very, I suppose, perhaps a lot of accountants, she's quite risk averse. Yeah. And because she's looking at the numbers all the time, whereas I'm the opposite, and because I'm not looking at the numbers, I'm always suggesting crazy stuff to do. But as a team, she stops us doing some of the crazy stuff, but then I'll convince her to go beyond the point that she would have been comfortable with. So we work really well together.
That's a great team.
We balance each other.
Yeah.
So in the end, I think we've been riskier than she would have liked, but less risky than I.
Yeah. But risk is part of the entrepreneurial journey.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Risk gets converted to profit. It's a bit like coal gets converted into diamonds eventually if you put enough pressure on it, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's not just it can't be only risk. You have to have some sort of some pretty smart decisions behind risk. Isn't there? You can't. Yeah.
And then if you've got that planning, of which Bianca then she's involved in that part is
Yeah.
giving that clarity and that planning and say, okay, this is what the cash is going to look like in 3 months' time or 6 months' time.
Yeah.
Can we do it? And cash is oxygen. If you don't have oxygen, you can't breathe. If you don't have cash, you can't do that trip that you want to do.
That's right. Yeah.
So very important.
Yeah. 100%.
And
Yeah.
making sure that the margins are right as well.
Yeah. And look, for
Yeah.
most of the time, she's actually been working in other jobs and does this in between. Now she's permanently full-time in the business. But yeah, so it's, I think she's now got to the point where she's got the time to do it properly, whereas for most of the time it was always a bit of catch-up going on.
Yeah.
But certainly planning is really important. I've been lucky in that I've met some quite successful people out there, taking them on tours, and always pick their brains. So I know I've had a couple of people, one of them in particular, this super brainy, a German fella he went to Harvard Business School and all. He's very successful fella. So I was picking his brains. And the one takeaway that he gave me, he says, never do anything without a strategy.
Yeah.
And since he told me that, I realised how I would often just go off on a tangent and just do something without really thinking it through. And now what I do is, hang on, now, even if it only takes me half an hour, I'll sit down, I'll create a new document, I'll write down what the goal is and what the strategy is, and is this a good idea, is it a bad idea, just have a discussion with myself and create some sort of a little strategy. And I think that was such valuable advice. And so it makes complete sense now that it's said out loud. But I, for one, and I'm sure lots of other people probably might just go off and make a decision and bang, off you go and start implementing whatever you're going to do. But yeah, if you just pull back and spend a little bit of time just on a strategy, it makes a world of difference.
That's right. You got to. I don't know if you've ever read that book about the E-myth, the entrepreneurial myth, where I think it's Michael Gerber, where he talked about we as entrepreneurs, we all want to be an entrepreneur, but you've got to be a manager as well, and you've got to be a technician. So you're good at what you do, organizing tours and doing the tours itself, but you've got to be a manager as well.
Yeah. And
in the meantime, get an entrepreneurial spirit going as well, which is sometimes a little bit more like, you can create gold out of thin air, basically, but it's a lot of risk involved. You've got to allow yourself to have crazy ideas sometimes, which you do, but then you're going to come back to the manager and say, okay, well, let's.
Yeah, and there's your crazy idea might end up not succeeding or whatever, but by having a strategy, you can often work that out within the first half an hour rather than spending the next month on this freaking thing.
Yeah.
And I'll sit down with Bianca now, anything new we want to do, a new tour or or some new marketing, or I'll sit down with Bianca and say, okay, this is this idea I've had. I'm the ideas man. I've got no shortage of those. And this is how I see it working. What do you think? And she'll say, that sounds pretty dumb. What about this? Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah. And I'll go away and I'll rework it. Or together, and she'll say, oh, but that doesn't work because of this. I say, no, I've thought of that because so there's, Yeah,
that's right. You've got to just bounce it off each other, which is great.
Planning and having some sort of critical analysis of what you're doing all the time, I think is good. Yeah. And
you're in a great position that you've got Bianca, you can bounce stuff off her, but a lot of other people in business say they perhaps like to have a coach or a mentor.
Yeah.
To throw your spaghetti against the wall and see if it sticks, for that matter.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Now, just we've been we could have gone up to the Kimberley and back because in the time we spent so far. It's great having a chat. But just as a last thought, your advice, and you did mention something earlier in our discussion. I think you did talk about problem solving. But what would you give to somebody if somebody comes to you and say, "Hey, Tim, I want to start a touring business"? What piece of advice would you tell them?
Look, work hard, I think, is the core. It's the key. I think when you're starting out, you typically don't have much money, but you've got time. That's your most valuable resource, isn't it? Your time. So don't overextend yourself. You can hire vehicles rather than buying them. Yeah. And it's putting yourself into it, and just don't be afraid to keep working. Yeah. Keep working and try to every now and again just stand back and make sure you're not barking up the wrong tree. That's right, and be smart about it, and don't try and do too much. I've certainly been guilty of that in the past. Then you don't do anything properly. Everything's half-baked, and that's a post-COVID thing, I've really pulled back on trying to do too many things.
Yeah.
I've had to really stop and say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to focus on this core thing.
Like you explained, you're working half the time and you're charging double.
Yeah. So I think, look, it is really hard starting out, but these days you've got social media, you've got Instagram, you've got Facebook, and all these TikTok and all this stuff that we never had. So I think if you're creative and work hard in those places, and you need to have a point of difference. You can't have exactly the same thing as your competitor. And
I like the point of difference.
100%.
Yeah.
And if you do a good job, people they'll spread the word and chase reviews. We work so hard on chasing reviews. It's really hard to get reviews. We do a really good job on all our tours. And on it, we drop people off at the airport or whatever, and they've a lot of them say it's the best thing they've ever done, or what. They're really genuinely, you can see they're happy. Yeah. And look, could you leave us a review? 100%, I'm going to leave a review. This was so good. I never write reviews. I'm going to write one for you because I had such a good time. And if we get a 50% hit rate, then that's fantastic. We probably get about, I don't know, maybe we get 30%. That's people good. Leave a review, which I think is it's exceptional. Yeah. But what I'm saying is everyone has the intent. I'm definitely going to. But then they get home, they get busy, and they forget about it.
So what you're saying is 100% of the people. Let's say you ask 100 people at the airport to leave a review, and they all said, "Yep, we're going to do it."
Yeah, and genuinely, I can see that they mean.
They really want to do it. Yeah. Only 30% perhaps really do it.
Yeah.
They're waiting for their plane and say, "Oh shit, we've got to write a quick review."
Sometimes they get home and then they're home and then they're back into their life. We do for those. I do sometimes get a bit cheeky and flip them a message a week later. Hey guys, try and make it nicer without begging. Or it's a tough one. It's a tough one. It is. But I think because reviews are so hard to get, that's what makes them.
It is valuable and true reviews. I don't know if some companies cheat on that. Is it AI systems that you can cheat with and generate reviews or whatever?
There probably is, but I'm sure Google's they'll be a step ahead of that.
They're going to blacklist you if they.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
yeah. Because when you're starting out, the reason someone's umming and ahhing as to whether they're going to choose you is that there's an unknown. They don't know what they're going to get. That's why McDonald's is so good, because you know what you're going to get, even if it's not great. You know what your Big Mac's going to taste like.
Yeah.
But there's an unknown, so they could come with you and it could be the worst thing they've done in their life, or it could be great, but they just don't know. So the reviews are something that can help them establish that if you're getting reviews, you must be a real business, and if you're getting good reviews, then you must be doing something.
Yeah, and I hear what you say. It's very important. So that's something to take away is be creative, work hard, and if you're in a touring business, make sure you get at reviews and use the tools available for the Instagrams and the TikToks perhaps.
Yeah, travel works really well on Instagram. If you're out there, if you're doing some tour, you're obviously in some beautiful place, photos, and get a drone or something and just,
perhaps tag you. Wild adventures in your tours, or
whatever you do. It's all about inspiring people to go and do your thing.
Talking about Instagram, don't go yet, because we're going to take a couple of pictures of us here in the studio, and we're going to put it on Instagram, and I'm going to put all your details on the show notes. And usually I came back from Port Augusta about a couple of weeks ago, and I stopped in Clare at the Bakehouse. Now, what I usually do is I try to leave a little bit of a review, a shout out to a business that I experience good service from, talking about review.
Yeah.
And I met there at this bakehouse. So I bought a nice pie, and it was almost closing time, but the people were really friendly, and they made sure that I still get a fresh one as well. And so it's a big shout out to the bakehouse, and specifically Thomas and Tyler, who was behind the counter, and really made sure that I'm all right fit for the last stretch home back to the Barossa.
Yeah, nice work. It's a good bakery, that one.
And Thomas mentioned actually to me that he knows your son.
Oh, is he? Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was in school with your son.
Yeah, okay.
So, anyway. So Thomas and Tyler from the Bakehouse, that's a bit of a shout out to you. Thanks for good service, and I'll keep on doing it on my show to shout outs for people that's giving excellent services. And Tim, really thanks a lot for coming in today.
Not a problem.
Happy
to help.
I think we've really inspired a lot. We didn't talk too much about numbers, which is perhaps sometimes good because otherwise people might fall asleep if they're driving behind the wheel.
Yeah.
But we know it's important that you're going to have financial clarity and looking at your margins and make sure that you got all your planning in place.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Look, hopefully people find it interesting. The opportunities are there, I think, for people to get out there and start a business and do their thing and get creative and work hard. I think the rewards are there. Yeah. Get out there.
Definitely. All right, Tim, thanks a lot, mate.
No worries. Okay. Thank you. Cheers.
All right, people. I had Tim Grigg in the studio, and that is me, Johan, signing off as your number man. Ciao.